Hi, this is Chloe Sears. This is my alternative assignment for Module 6, in which we read the essay Kant and Hegel and watched the three videos, the first two on Karl Marx and the last one on capitalism. So I wanted to start off by saying I found the same similarities that I found in the past couple of essays. This idea that these philosophers, especially Kant, was starting to stray away from his accepted religious beliefs in the church and think about them, specifically him, in a more rational sense rather than just this idea that what they're saying is correct and that these ideas need to be accepted. So I thought it was interesting that we can again see that as philosophy is coming towards more what we know as modern philosophy, people are straying further and further and further from the accepted ideas of the church. So I think it's interesting to see that almost every philosopher that we've read about up until this point as well has mentioned their stray from their religious beliefs because they were able to develop a more complex idea of a sense of self. So I thought that was really interesting to see that similarity within the essay again, similar to all the other philosophers. I thought one of the ideas that was presented by Kant that was really, really interesting was that the ideas that we already have within our brain, what we comprehend, allows us to contribute to our experiences because otherwise we wouldn't be able to translate pieces into wholes. So I thought that quote was really interesting because it was this idea that we have the foundation, but we have the foundation, which is useful, but without being able to add extra things to it, we're not able to fully make the connection between things. We're not able to fully see how ideas meld together and become these broad ideas that are now what we know as philosophy. The example that he gave was this idea of letters, is that we have the letters, but without being able to fully comprehend how to put them together and not just mumbo jumbo, we're able to create words in which we can read. So by doing that, I thought that was a really useful example because it helped me take that concept that was a little bit confusing and muddled and come to a better understanding of it. I kind of felt that way with a lot of Kant's ideas, is that he had really profound ideas, especially in relation to our own common sense and the ideas that we have within our brain that are already present, but we need to accept them in order to be able to fully understand everything within the metaphysical world. But I think that because his ideas are so profound, it makes it really difficult to somebody like myself who's just now beginning on my philosophical journey to fully understand them. So I thought that was interesting because I haven't had as much trouble understanding philosophers up until this point. I had a little bit of trouble kind of figuring out what he was trying to say because it just seems really each idea seems a little bit misconstrued. But anyway, I also thought that it was interesting that he presented this idea that different than the ideas that no ideas are innate. So his idea that what we have already in our brain is contributing to our experiences. I thought it was interesting because in a past essay, I can't remember who it was, but Provost mentioned this idea that none of our thoughts are innate and that we don't have these ideas within our brain. It's that we learn them through experiences and stuff like that. So I thought it was interesting because it's a little bit different than this idea that what we already have within our brain contributes to our experiences rather than what we experiences allows us to understand these things. So I just thought it was interesting. It made me think to question, is this different than that idea that was presented by a different philosopher? And are there really no innate ideas if this idea that what we have within our brain is contributing to our experiences? Again, because I was a little bit confused, I might have interpreted this incorrectly, but it just led me to question that because it was something different that was presented in a differing essay. Let's see, what else is that? I thought it was interesting, and I was a little bit confused, like with most of the ideas, is that we cannot use reason with metaphysics to understand the world around us and philosophy. So I thought that was a little bit confusing because I don't really know very much about metaphysics and this idea of all how time and space works. But I think I was able to come to the conclusion that the reason why we can't use reason is because a lot of these ideas aren't feasible in a way that can be reasoned out. So like you can't just come to this conclusion that, oh, it works this way because of that. It's because it's space and time, and they're kind of enigmas within this this world. Like a phenomenon is that it's just kind of there, but you can't really think and be like, oh, I accept that, I see that, it's happening, and it's happening because of this. So I thought that was interesting to present that idea, relating back to that idea that we already have it within our brain and our ability to comprehend it, kind of that idea that space and time are there, and we know that they're there, but we can't really explain why, and reason doesn't work to explain it. Kind of that idea with the example that Dr. Provost presented with the idea of our eyes and our brain, is that we know that they're there and we accept that they're there, and it's this innate idea that we know that it's there and it functions in a certain way, but we can't physically see it unless in a reflection. In the brain, you're never going to be able to look at your brain, but it's inside of it. So I thought that was a little bit confusing, but I think I was able to come to a little bit of a conclusion about it. So I thought that was interesting. So then going on to Hegel, who had some really interesting ideas as well, I thought that his idea that everything in existence gives birth to its opposite is this clash between dimensions, and understanding that because of this dialect, the clash between all things in the universe are related. So that may not have made any sense. But what I was trying to say is that because of this clash between these different ideas, and everything that it has existed thus far has given birth to the opposite thing that it exists in its way. And I was able to kind of remotely relate that to one of Karl Marx's ideas, is that I think that because he was so against capitalism, I think if he had been able to fully understand philosophy within that time, and Hegel's idea of dialect, he would have been able to see that there is an opposite to capitalism, but it's just different and not really represented. So I think he would have been able to see that maybe his idea that he presented wasn't necessarily true, but because capitalism existed, it had given rise to that opposite idea that would come forward later on. So I thought that was interesting. It kind of was a little bit far apart, but I think it was related, and it just made sense to me. It was a way that I was able to be like, oh, so, he would have avoided all of this if he had been able to understand this idea in philosophy that we that every single thing gives birth to an opposite thing. So I thought that idea was really interesting. It kind of brought on an emotional positive response, because it's this idea that every single thing that you do comes with the opposite of itself, I think, within myself. So it's like you're making this decision, this positive decision, but it has these repercussions or these things that go along with it because it exists. But I just thought it was interesting because, like, everything I never really thought about this idea that everything existed, and because it existed, there was something outside of it. But anyway, I